There's a particular kind of exhaustion that most people will never understand. It doesn't come from physical labor or lack of sleep. It comes from living inside a mind that never stops analyzing, questioning, replaying, and predicting. It's the exhaustion of someone who can't just experience a moment. They have to dissect it, interpret it, and imagine every possible version of what it means and where it could lead. This is the reality of people who overthink everything. And if you're one of them, you already know that overthinking isn't just a bad habit or a personality quirk. It's a psychological pattern that shapes how you experience reality, how you relate to others, and how you navigate even the simplest decisions. It's not something you can just stop doing because someone tells you to relax. It's deeper than that, more complex than that, and far more misunderstood than that. Let's start by understanding what overthinking actually is, because most people confuse it with deep thinking or careful consideration. Overthinking isn't about being thoughtful or analytical. It's about getting trapped in thought loops that don't lead to clarity or solutions. It's the mental equivalent of running on a treadmill. Lots of movement, no progress, complete exhaustion. Psychologists define overthinking or rumination as repetitive negative thinking about past events or potential future scenarios. But that clinical definition doesn't capture the lived experience. It doesn't explain what it feels like to replay a single conversation 17 times, analyzing every word, every pause, every facial expression, searching for hidden meanings that might not even exist. It doesn't explain the mental exhaustion of constantly preparing for problems that haven't happened. It doesn't explain the paralysis that comes from seeing too many possibilities, too many potential outcomes, too many ways things could go wrong. And it definitely doesn't explain why, even when you know you're overthinking, you can't seem to stop. So what creates this pattern? Why do some people's minds operate this way while others can just let things go? The answer reveals something profound about the psychology of overthinkers, and it starts much earlier than most people realize. People who overthink everything often develop this pattern as a survival mechanism. Somewhere in their past, maybe in childhood, maybe later, their brain learned that analyzing situations carefully helped them navigate unpredictable or emotionally complex environments. If you grew up in a household where moods were volatile, where you had to read the room constantly to stay safe, your brain learned hypervigilance. It learned to scan for threats, anticipate reactions, prepare for every possible scenario. And even if your environment becomes safer later in life, your nervous system doesn't automatically update. It keeps operating on that old programming, constantly scanning, constantly analyzing, constantly preparing. What started as protection becomes a prison. What began as necessary awareness becomes exhausting hyperawareness. This is why overthinkers often have such well-developed emotional intelligence. They're exceptional at reading people, sensing unspoken tension, picking up on subtle cues that others miss entirely. But this gift comes with a curse, because when you're constantly tuned in to everything, your mind never gets to rest. Every interaction becomes something to analyze. Every silence becomes something to interpret. Every decision becomes a mental marathon. And here's where it gets more complex. Overthinking isn't just about past trauma or learned behavior. There's also a neurological component. Research shows that people who overthink tend to have heightened activity in the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for complex thinking, planning, and problem solving. For overthinkers, this region doesn't know when to quiet down. Their brain is like a search engine that never stops generating results. Ask it one question, and it returns 17 related searches, each opening more tabs, creating more questions, spiraling into an infinite loop of analysis. This isn't a lack of intelligence, it's an abundance of it working against itself. The same mental capacity that could solve complex problems gets trapped solving imaginary ones. But there's another layer that people rarely talk about. Overthinking often coexists with perfectionism. And perfectionism isn't about wanting things to be good, it's about being terrified of things being wrong. Overthinkers analyze every detail because they're trying to control outcomes, prevent mistakes, avoid criticism, or minimize rejection. If you can think through every angle, you believe you can protect yourself from failure or disappointment. If you can predict every possible reaction, you think you can avoid saying the wrong thing. If you can replay past conversations enough times, maybe you'll figure out what you should have said, what you could have done differently, how you might have prevented that awkward moment or misunderstanding. But the painful truth is, overthinking doesn't actually provide the control or certainty it promises. It creates the illusion of control while generating more anxiety. Because no matter how much you analyze, you can never predict with certainty how someone will react, how a situation will unfold, or whether you made the right choice. Life is fundamentally uncertain, and overthinking is an attempt to eliminate uncertainty, which is impossible. This is why overthinkers often struggle with decision-making. Even simple choices become overwhelming. Should I send this text? What if they misinterpret it? What if they don't respond? What if they think I'm being too forward or not interested enough? A decision that takes most people 30 seconds can occupy an overthinker's mind for hours or even days. And the most frustrating part? Overthinkers are usually aware that they're overthinking. They know they're making things more complicated than they need to be. They know their analysis is probably excessive, but knowing doesn't stop it. Because overthinking isn't a logical process, it's an emotional one. It's driven by anxiety, by the need for certainty, by fear of making mistakes or being judged. This is where the relationship between overthinking and anxiety becomes crucial. Overthinking is both a symptom and a cause of anxiety. When you're anxious, your mind searches for threats, which triggers overthinking. But overthinking also generates more anxiety by constantly presenting your brain with potential problems, worst-case scenarios, and reasons to worry. It's a self-reinforcing cycle. Anxiety triggers overthinking, overthinking creates more anxiety leads to more overthinking. And the person trapped in this cycle becomes mentally and emotionally exhausted even when nothing objectively difficult has happened. They're fighting battles in their mind that don't exist in reality. People who overthink also tend to struggle with being present because their mind is always somewhere else, replaying yesterday or rehearsing tomorrow. They're analyzing what was said last week or preparing for what might happen next month. This creates a strange disconnect between external calm and internal chaos. They might look relaxed on the outside, but inside, their mind is running 1,000 miles per hour. There's also a social dimension to overthinking that makes relationships complicated. Overthinkers analyze every interaction with painful intensity. Did that person seem off? Was their tone different? Did I say something wrong? Are they upset with me? Should I check in, or will that seem needy? This constant analysis creates problems that didn't exist. They might read tension into neutral interactions. They might interpret a delayed text response as rejection when the person was just busy. They might apologize for things that didn't actually bother anyone. Their overthinking creates imaginary relationship problems while simultaneously making them hypersensitive to real ones. And here's what makes this especially difficult. Overthinkers often know they're doing this. They're aware they might be reading too much into things, but that awareness doesn't stop the thoughts. It just adds another layer of analysis. Now they're overthinking their overthinking. They're worried about being anxious. They're worried that their worrying is pushing people away. This self-awareness without the ability to stop creates a particular kind of frustration. It's like watching yourself make a mistake in slow motion, but being unable to intervene. You can observe your patterns, recognize them as unhelpful, and still feel powerless to change them in the moment. But there's something important to understand about overthinkers that's often missed. Their overthinking comes from a place of caring deeply. They analyze because they want to get things right. They replay conversations because they value their relationships. They prepare for every scenario because they want to be ready. The problem isn't that they don't care, it's that they care so much that their care becomes counterproductive. This is why telling an overthinker to just relax or stop overthinking is not only unhelpful, it's invalidating. It dismisses the psychological complexity of what's actually happening.
It's like telling someone with depression to just be happy, or someone with anxiety to just calm down. If it were that simple, they would have done it already. The reality is that overthinkers need strategies, not dismissal. They need to understand their patterns, recognize their triggers, and develop tools to interrupt the overthinking cycle. And yes, this is possible. Overthinking is a learned pattern, which means it can be unlearned or at least managed. One of the most effective strategies involves recognizing the difference between productive thinking and rumination. Productive thinking moves toward a solution or decision. Rumination circles the same thoughts without progress. When overthinkers can catch themselves ruminating, asking the same questions without new information, replaying scenarios that can't be changed, they can make a conscious choice to redirect. This doesn't mean suppressing thoughts. Suppression usually backfires. Instead, it means acknowledging the thought and choosing not to engage with it. I notice I'm replaying that conversation again. I've already analyzed it. There's nothing new to learn here. I'm choosing to focus on something else. Another crucial tool is learning to tolerate uncertainty, because at the core of most overthinking is an intolerance for not knowing. Overthinkers want certainty, clarity, definitive answers. But life rarely provides these things. Learning to be okay with "I don't know," or "I can't control this," or "this might not work out, and that's okay," is transformative. This is difficult because it goes against the overthinker's instinct. Their instinct says, "If I think about this enough, I'll figure it out." But sometimes the healthiest response is, "I've thought about this enough. I'm making the best decision I can with the information I have, and I'm accepting that I can't predict or control every outcome." There's also value in externalizing thoughts. Writing them down, saying them out loud, or sharing them with someone trusted can help overthinkers see their thoughts more objectively. When thoughts stay internal, they can spiral endlessly. But when expressed externally, they often lose some of their power. You might realize, when I say this out loud, it sounds less catastrophic than it felt in my head. Physical strategies matter too, because overthinking isn't just mental, it's also physiological. When your nervous system is in a heightened state, your mind becomes more prone to racing thoughts and anxiety. Practices that calm the nervous system, deep breathing, movement, spending time in nature, anything that brings you into your body and out of your head can significantly reduce overthinking. But perhaps the most important shift for overthinkers is self-compassion. Because overthinkers are often incredibly hard on themselves. They judge themselves for overthinking. They criticize themselves for being too much or too sensitive or too in their head. This self-criticism only adds to the mental burden. Learning to say, "My mind works this way, and that's okay. I'm not broken, I'm just wired for deep processing, and I'm learning to manage it," can be revolutionary. It transforms overthinking from a personal failing into a psychological pattern that can be understood and addressed with kindness rather than judgment. And here's what many overthinkers eventually discover. Their overthinking, when channeled productively, can actually be a strength. The same depth of thinking that causes them distress can also lead to profound insights, creative solutions, and deep understanding of complex situations. The key is learning to direct it rather than being controlled by it. Overthinkers make excellent problem solvers when they're working on actual problems rather than imaginary ones. They make thoughtful friends who consider things from multiple perspectives. They make careful decision makers when they can balance analysis with action. Their capacity for deep thought isn't the enemy, it's the lack of regulation and direction that creates suffering. So if you're someone who overthinks everything, here's what I want you to know. You're not alone. Millions of people experience this same exhausting mental pattern. You're not broken or defective. Your brain developed this pattern for reasons that made sense at some point, even if it's no longer serving you well. And most importantly, you're not powerless. While you might not be able to completely stop your mind from generating thoughts, you can change your relationship with those thoughts. You can learn to recognize when you're caught in rumination rather than productive thinking. You can develop the ability to redirect your focus. You can practice tolerating uncertainty instead of trying to eliminate it. This doesn't happen overnight.
It takes practice, patience, and often support from others who understand. But it is possible to move from being controlled by your thoughts to being able to observe them, evaluate them, and choose which ones deserve your energy and which ones you can let pass by. Because the goal isn't to stop thinking deeply. The goal is to think deeply when it serves you and to rest when it doesn't. To analyze when analysis is helpful and to let go when it's just creating suffering. To use your powerful mind intentionally rather than being used by it. Your overthinking mind isn't your enemy. It's a part of you that developed to protect you, that tries to keep you safe, that wants you to succeed and be accepted and avoid pain. It just needs to learn that not every thought requires action, not every question needs an answer, and not every uncertainty needs to be resolved. And when you can offer yourself that understanding, that compassion, that patience, something shifts. The overthinking doesn't necessarily disappear, but it loosens its grip. The thoughts don't stop, but you stop being controlled by them. And slowly, with practice, you discover that you can have a busy mind and a peaceful heart at the same time. That's the journey. That's the possibility. And that's what's available to anyone willing to understand their overthinking rather than just fight against it.